Okay. This is dope. All right. So, welcome to the first episode of Navigating Racial Waters. This is a long overdue podcast, um, content, whatever, a collaboration between my cousin who you see on the screen, who will
Yeah, yeah.
eventually be here in person, and myself. We're just going to jump right into it because part of what we have planned is to just talk about how we got here.
Welcome,
So
world.
I
Thank
will
you.
start. I'm gonna start by introducing my cousin. And before he doesn't even do himself justice, you might know him from, Chugga 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 Chugga. He is an actor, a Renaissance man, star of stage and screen. My cousin Neil Hazard, who is my co-host. Go ahead, Neil. Introduce yourself to the people. Tell them who you are.
Yeah, hello, world. My name is Neil Hazard. Like I said, I'm blessed to be Leon Corey's cousin. A native of East Providence, Rhode Island. Manny Rodriguez always told me I had to say East Providence, not Providence. Um, and URI graduate and moved to Atlanta and became a theater actor. I lived in Rhode Island for a long period of time, but then moved to Atlanta. Something was pulling me there. I always said, became a theater actor, a writer, um, and I've been blessed to work with some amazing people. Yeah, and I've been a journeyman. I've lived in Minnesota. Shout out to St. Paul. Lived there for a couple years, 2 or 3 years. Did the stages there as well. Some of my credits include One Man Show on Thurgood Marshall, Susan Laurie Parks, Top Dog Underdog. Done that show twice. Played both Lincoln and Booth, Shakespeare, August Wilson, and the list goes on and on. Um, I am excited about this program, this first show with my cousin Leon. Um, I saw our conversations as we became, for lack of better phrase, boys to men. As I seen our conversations grow, I couldn't wait to get on a platform with him to discuss politics, anything that comes across um, our vision, and to be able to talk it over with him and to have you all peek in at it is exciting. So I'm glad to be here. Hope I haven't taken up too much time. And now I want to give you all the chance to get to know Leon Corey, my cousin. And before he doesn't, maybe he already introduced himself, I don't know, but before he doesn't do himself justice, this is a young brother who I consider, and he's never heard this, I consider him to be my hero. Um, when life has come at him, um, he's never put his head in the sand and complained and whined, why me, why me? But he takes more of an approach to life that says, why not me? And he's a good man. He's a good cousin. He's definitely a good brother, son. He's all of those things, and he's my guy. He was my guy when he was younger, and now he's my guy as in a right hand man as we get older and go from boys to men. Leon, your turn. Do it.
Thank you, cuz. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you so much.
I got you.
So, you got me all, flabbergasted now. So I am first of all, husband, father, son, have a beautiful family, two beautiful children. And that is my primary job. My primary responsibility is to, be the provider, protector, but also take part in the, nurturing and loving and, all of that. It's not the old days where you just, went to work, came home, sat down, ate, and, got the big piece of chicken. There's more that goes into it now. But also, I am a recently or a former elected official, recently former small town elected official, first person of color elected to the highest office in a town. We'll leave the town nameless for now because I don't really feel like upsetting people in the first like 5 minutes. I am also I am an umpire. I am a sales
Yeah,
executive.
yeah.
I am I am somebody who just strives to leave things better than they were before I got there, and that is something that I look to do. I also do have, opinions on a lot of things, but the primary focus of what I do and what motivates me is just human rights in general. And I say in general because although I am a black man, there's more to it. And I founded a what is called a the Belonging Committee, which is a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee in the town that I eventually went on to be elected in. And I just try to make sure that everybody is represented, make sure everybody has a voice, make sure people are able to express themselves. One of the things that I really appreciate about some of the younger generations is that um, they aren't afraid to share their voice. Oh, sometimes
Yeah,
it comes across as a little crass and maybe rude or whatever to the older generations. But the reality is, all they want to do is share their voice. And a lot of what we were told when we were younger is to just kind of take that back seat to the grown folks. Whereas they're
be
like, no,
quiet
no,
while
no,
grown folks are talking.
exactly. And they're like, no, we got something to say here too.
Hmm.
And there's no better expert on what it is to be what matters to the younger generation than the younger generation. So I'm glad they're getting involved, and that's something that I want to make sure that this world is better for my children, and that they don't have to have some of the fights, and some of the challenges that I've had. And so with that, how did we get here? This podcast has been in the works for, I mean, at least 7 months, probably longer.
Probably gonna say closer to a year, maybe.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, my cousin and I would just, we would just have a phone call and chat.
Yeah,
And, I think we realized that the things that we were talking about, number one, there was just a massive void, in the content world, that people were not talking from it. People were having these conversations, but not in a space where it was shared.
yes.
Uh, and so we felt, as we were going through some of the challenges and what have you, we felt kind of lonely.
Hmm.
We have nowhere to go with it. Our challenges, as and the perspective of this podcast is from two, basically middle class black men.
Yes,
And people look at our challenges like they're not necessarily, they're not black enough, or they're not real enough, or they're not, they're first world problems or whatever, but they're still problems.
of course. Yes,
And
yes.
so we just decided, what, if we exist, then somebody else out there has to have the same
Same
problems.
thought process and same
And
problems. Yeah,
there's probably a lot of us out there who have these problems. And I think we will serve as therapy for those people, because this is going to be therapy for us.
as well. Yes, yes. Hey,
you
Leon, can
know
I share a story that we one time when you met me? Well, you were in Atlanta, Georgia, on business, and can I share a conversation we had
Absolutely.
that I knew that things were going to be different. Our conversations were going to be different. My cousin brought up this point just to get things popping. Black Lives Matter. Now, not the movement, not everything behind it, not what it means. We're not going to go there today, not right now, but just the phrasing, Black Lives Matter. And my cousin hit me to something that stayed on my mind for like the next week and a half. He said, that phrase doesn't work. I said, what do you mean? He was like, because too many people see it differently. He says, if you're black, he said there's one word missing for each group, for blacks and non-blacks or white people. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, for black people, we're screaming out Black Lives Matter, missing word, comma, two, TOO, in which that's the message that we're trying to get across, that it's our lives that are being disrespected, and our lives that are being snuffed out. I said, what non-blacks or maybe just whites and other people in general, they're thinking that it's Black Lives Matter, but before black, it's only the word that's missing. And he said that's where the disconnect is. And I said, wow, man. I was like, that stayed on my mind and that rocked my head for like a week and a half, man. And I just knew that, okay, our conversations, they're elevating. Things are gonna be different. We're gonna move in a different way. And again, here we are. So I just wanted to add that to the
Yeah.
conversation.
And that's dope because that's some of the, we want this to be organic. We want
Mhm.
this, we don't want to put on a show.
No.
We want to be, so the interaction is just for people, watching, listening, whatever. The interaction is going to be, sometimes it's going to be a little bit more formal. Sometimes it's just going to be casual. What's up? Because it's going, but it's going to be organic.
Yes.
And our relationship with each other is such that we will call each other out when we're acting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the fun. That's going to be the funness of it because I'm sure in the back of the head, I watch TV and whatever, and sometimes you're watching some of these not so. Well, I was gonna call them trash, but I won't go there yet. But just some of these shows out there where
first
you're
show,
like,
man, first show. Wait till later.
First and last. But it'll be, just shows out there where it's supposed to be reality, but it's not reality. So it's like understanding the dynamic of when you're on and when you're not, and some of that is acting. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to manufacture outrage. And so this is my big cousin, my big brother, but also we've just gotten to a place where we've pretty much every major loss in each other's lives or major tragedy in each other's lives has occurred together.
Wow.
And we're in an interesting place. In one side of my family, I say my family because this is the part that is our family. But it is, I am the oldest of one group by a significant amount and the youngest in, well, not even in that group, but I'm closer to you, in that way. So it creates like this disconnect that I have with like some of my cousins and others within, that generational group, and I'm closer to you and what have you. But that's because I'm old enough that I've experienced certain things that they didn't. Or even if they were old enough, they weren't old enough to emotionally experience
or appreciate it.
Exactly. And like an example is, my aunt, your cousin Alexis. Like I was old enough for that to impact me. That was also the same, only months away from my great grandmother, your grandmother. And so, but like some of my younger brother, he was just a baby.
Right,
I think it was 1 or 2 when those happened. So he doesn't necessarily have the emotional connection or even the same memories. And that's true for a lot of things. So that is kind of what created the dynamic that we have, and it's thrown some people off. I know when you got married, some people were like, "How's he your best man? How'd that happen?" I know some people felt away. But I mean, it's just how it is. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. So one of the things that got us here, and is going to be the first kind of official topic, and if this airs, because this is supposed to be the test run, but I have a feeling we'll just gotta put it out there anyway.
Let's roll with it.
Is social media coonery. And let's just jump right in there, cuz and we were having a conversation, and it's just one of those things. Like I was raised, and I realized that there's a bit of a disconnect. I think as we've grown as a people, it's we have forgotten some of the lessons, or we have felt like maybe we've evolved beyond the lessons of the need to be aware of your surroundings. And the fact that I remember when I was in college, I had a conversation and I realized that in some cases, I was the first Black person that people had ever really interacted with.
Hmm.
And so I represented and this is part of the struggle and the challenge of being, a black person in this country is when you do something, although it's not fair and we want to be, equal and what have you, but the reality is when we do something, we represent all black people. It's the black
Yes.
man's burden. Uh,
Hmm.
and so when you look at, where social media content has gone and the access to be able to put content out there, what gets the most views and the most likes and the most interactions and whatever is what I was raised to believe is coonery. The fact that we need to dance and be silly all the time,
And
the
smile and grin and wave our hands.
the brother who drives me crazy, the one who's always sitting there taking guy jargies like muscle bound, but taking ginormous bites of food and dancing all at the same time. It's like, son, you put every stereotype together in one and was like, only thing you're not doing is singing.
Yeah.
It's like, and dressed in a minstrel costume, and it
Yeah.
drives me crazy. But I realized, this is something that I think about all the time. But like, I realized that, like, I'm not really mad at him. I'm mad at who taught him. I'm mad that nobody told him because there's no way. I refuse to believe, and I think this is where some of the optimism that I have in just humans.
Yeah.
I refuse to believe that he was taught the same lessons that I was taught. I mean, there appears to be at least a 10-year gap between how old I am and how old he is. Probably more like 20. And he just like, nobody told him, listen, this is what people had to go through people had to do those things to entertain. People
Yeah.
had to do those things to be on TV and in movies and whatever. They had to act like a minstrel and, step in and fetch it and whatever in order to actually be there. But so you are carrying these stereotypes with you, and every time you do what you're doing, you are setting us back.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance, cousin. Like I I sent you the one that bothers me. That commercial for a certain insurance company that's I kind of want to call them out. That's how angry that's how angry the commercial makes me. But you got a
Mhm.
black guy getting out of a cab and hey, and he's just tap dancing through the whole commercial, and he's skating on the stool and he's smiling and literally his hands are going. And you talk about the age difference. Now that brother looks older than me, and I'm a quote unquote old head. He looks older than me with his Frederick Douglass beard, his bald head, and he should know better. He
Mhm.
should know better. He should know the image he's putting out. And you're doing that in 2024. We just had there used to be not too long ago a certain toothpaste that was bold enough to have. They would hold a brown bag and have people smile. Oh, are your teeth darker than this? Blah blah blah. It's cute for a toothpaste commercial, but you know what? We as black people used to have to go through that to gain entrance into certain places. Are you browner than this brown bag? If you are, you can't enter. So, there's little tropes that are there that they kind of throw back. And yeah, like I said, I watched his brother do this commercial, and I watch him huck and Tom and shuck and jive. And the black man in me is like, brother, what are you doing? You setting us back. The actor in me is like, I know you might need that check, but sometimes you might have to suffer a little to not get that check.
And that actually, one of the things I've always wanted to ask you is when you look at your career,
Hmm.
do you feel as though your sense of, because I've heard some actors say it. So I'm asking you, do you feel as though your sense of self,
Hmm.
you not being willing to sacrifice your dignity, your humanity,
Has
do you
that held
feel
me
as though
back?
that has held your career back?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are doors that I just wouldn't go through. I was just talking about this the other day. Certain doors I wouldn't go through, certain things that um, I wouldn't do. Uh, when I first got to Atlanta, I was part of this process. It's called the 24-hour plays. And in 24 hours on a Friday, you come together. You don't have a script. You don't have a crew. Everybody gets together in a group. And in that 24 hours, you put together a show. And then in that next day, it's presented on stage. You get a subject. You get a subject. You get a director. You get your cast. Nothing is put together. 24 hours, you have an entire lineup of different shows. And I was this 50s gangster one day, and in the show, I had this little girl, and I had to hold a gun to her head with my hat and everything else, and I had her in my arm. I have this gun. I'm just looking. Don't you know that they put that image in the paper, and that was the thing that talked about the 24-hour plays, and it was my friend Heidi, a white director, a female. She called me up and she was like, you just set your brothers back about 10, 15 years by that picture getting out there.
Yep.
Just giving me a hard time. But it was like, it's an image. It's an image. And I think that every artist, actor in my case, but all artists should, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for everything.
Yeah.
And if you have to take a stand sometimes.
I can certainly say that, like, I don't know that it's held my career back as a salesperson. I mean, there have certainly been challenges, and I think it's actually starting to affect my career now.
Sure.
Because of Google and the ability to just Google my name and stuff comes up by way of my political career. People are seeing, I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure people have seen some of the articles and what have you that have come up. And I do appreciate that the majority of the articles, at least from the larger paper, have been, more objective and fair than the one or two in the, little small town newspaper that covered only that town. But it's still, now people can look these up, and it's like, all I'm doing is just, standing up for myself.
Yeah.
Or actually, I wasn't even standing up for myself, really. I was standing up for the town administrator, who was a Black woman. But, regardless, I was just standing up for, for equity. But because they didn't necessarily like her, everybody, it becomes a different narrative. But it also looks like I am a trouble starter. So it's being an umpire now, some of the towns I go to, it's been a really interesting experience because, I go to some really rural towns, really white bread towns. And it's crazy because, like, within the circle that I'm in, I will say I've actually seen one other brother who umpired. He and I have never worked together, but, like, I literally just saw him for the first time last weekend.
Okay.
And we said, what's up? Like, and that's actually something that I want to talk about at a later date, just like growing up, feeling the obligation to say what's up to the other person, because I don't feel like this generation is there. But
interesting. Yes.
But and so we've never worked together. But the interesting thing is, I think my experiences as an umpire, like in those towns, has actually been more positive than in some of the more inner city settings, where I've run into issues with people. And I think, I'm thinking of one, and I'm not at the place where I'm going to start calling out people in towns or whatever, especially because most of the umpiring I do is kids. But what I'm realizing is I am the first person of color that these people are coming across that's in an authority position. An umpire, no matter how annoying, no matter how much, they go through whatever, it is still a position of authority in that environment. Yes. You are the authority on that field. You can make somebody go home. You can kick them out of the park. You can do whatever. Yes. But, I'm running into cases where people are not necessarily loving how I respond to things. When you're ignorant and I respond back to your ignorance. And so it makes me, and this is a more universal statement, I put it on, my Facebook page the other day, where it's, when you're effectively the common denominator. where you are the person who is viewed as the troublemaker because you're the one who is at the center point. But the problem is actually more institutional in that people are not necessarily used to taking orders from a person who looks like me.
Yes, facts.
And so when you respond to it and it seems like there is aggression, my aggression is always viewed as greater than their aggression because my aggression is a big black man and
Mhm.
their aggression looks like them.
Yes,
And so
yes.
naturally, just because of the stereotypes and because, the way society is painted things, people are going to assume, and I accept that. I say all the time, yes, I'm aware, I'm a big black man. Like, I get it. And I try to at least use that to kind of soften the blow. But it's like
Mhm.
that doesn't make the fact that what is happening is still wrong.
Right,
And
right.
so, and my hope is that people eventually realize that, like, that light bulb goes off. And I know it'll never go off until somebody who looks like them tells them. And even in that case, they're still going to fight it. They're going to call them, a Brandon or a Snowflake or whatever, because anything that is viewed as open-mindedness is viewed as a challenge to the white man.
The status
And
quo,
actually,
yes.
and even more so, the biggest challenges that I've run into, from a socio-political standpoint, have been with liberal women.
Mm.
And it's I think in my experience, it's, I live in an area where it's not necessarily the most diverse. The majority of the people of color do happen to be in a more inner city setting.
Yep.
And so I think because of that, it is painted, these people have grown up with the view that all people of color are them.
Yes.
And they haven't encountered many of me. So they don't know how to put me, they don't know where to put me because I don't fit in any of the buckets they know. I don't fit the, superstar athlete from the hood that moved into your suburb to play ball. I don't fit the criminal. I don't fit your mechanic. I don't fit any of these things. I probably fit more things that you associate with somebody white than the things that you associate with somebody who looks like me. Even the confidence to feel like I belong there. I'm not grateful for being there. I appreciate that I got there. I appreciate that you voted for me, but I am no more grateful than the other people next to me for being there because I earned it. I went to school, probably better schools than most. I,
Mhm.
and I had to fight and do more to get there.
To
So I
get there.
earned it just as much. But they
Mhm.
want you to have that, oh shucks, I'm so grateful, thank you, massa kind of
Yeah.
attitude,
Yeah.
and they can't handle it. And
Where am I broadcasting from?
New Mexico.
Albuquerque, New Mexico, right?
Yes, sir.
You think there's many people down here look like me?
No.
You think there's many people down here sound like me?
Mm-mm. Not at all.
I've just being myself has gotten me out of a couple of dudes that have looked at me that I know straight up didn't like blacks because that's their only association is what they
Mhm.
see on television. And it took time to just for them to talk to me, listen to me, hear me. These are things I've done. I've worked as an actor, and then for them to get to know me, then they loosen up, and then
Yep.
and it's been like that all my travels, man. It's I tell you when I did Thurgood Marshall in Minnesota, I was with Illusion Theater, and I did this as a tour throughout the great state. Um, I was a little upset at first because I'm like, hey man, you guys aren't booking me for any. I don't see any black students. It was for schools and for auditoriums at night, stages at night. And I said, I want to see more black students out there. I want to get this education out. So there were a couple schools that they coordinated with me with, but other than that, it was still mostly white audiences. And as we were doing the talkbacks, I could just see this level of appreciation and wonderment, like as you said, they've never seen somebody like me before in their small town. I
Mhm.
mean, literally, my guy who, like the producer, we would go out to eat, and I'm looking through these towns, and I'm like, it's got to be one. It's got to be one. Got to be one that looks like me. Nobody. But they were very gracious in the show. They paid attention. They had great questions to ask. And I was like, okay, maybe this is part of the mission as well, to be the one. Um, I've said this recently about myself. I think I found out part of my purpose in life is that once you're somebody that's non-black, that you've encountered me, you can no longer say they're all like that.
Hmm.
You can no longer say they're all like that. You have to say, well, you know what? No, they're not. I met this one guy, and he was really cool, and we just had good talks, good conversation. I wasn't stepping fetching. I wasn't trying to tap dance and make you like me to be. No, just being me, talking to you as a man, as a woman, and with the directness and um, a surety and confidence that is given to me as a human being, as not just as a human being first, and as a black man second. And hopefully, you can appreciate and respect that.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, and that's partly how we even got. It's like literally everything we're talking about is centering around how we got here, because
Yes.
that's a void. And as I was going through some of the challenges in the town, I'm looking for people like, hey, I'm only what 35 miles from Providence where I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and like, hey, somebody help me, somebody
Yeah.
please, like,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting any from any of the leaders, the so-called leaders who are out there and doing whatever and saying whatever and claiming to be there, who are there for the march when all the cameras are out and social media is there. And but because I'm not doing that, I'm not out there trying to, it's I it's I didn't grow up, maybe it is I'm kind of making the assumption that it's a generational thing, that like I'm a little bit on the other end of growing up with social media. And so the natural urge to always just have a camera out, you know,
Yeah.
videoing everything I do is
Yeah.
just, it seems incredibly disingenuous to me. So I'm not doing it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
look, I'll do the acts. I'll be there. I'll march. I'll fight. I'll do whatever. I will be
Yep.
out in front, but I'm not doing it because the cameras are there. I'm doing it
Right. Right.
because it needs to be done.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so because of that, and because I'm not, taking all the pictures and I'm not making all the posts, it doesn't necessarily, people just assume it's not happening, or they know
Mm-hmm.
it's happening and they're like, well, nobody's going to see me do that. So I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to go to the other one where everybody else is going to be there. People would
Yes.
rather be the 101st person than the 12th person.
Right. Right.
And so I was really, I did appreciate that there was a wonderful white lady named Diane, who you know very well,
Okay.
virtually. But she was willing to, she was willing to stand out there, like by herself, well, with her son, just holding a
Yep.
sign. I protesting the way I was treated, and
Mm-hmm.
my uncle, who is a known person within the Providence world, he was the first rapper. Xavier, he was the first rapper in Providence,
Yeah.
Rhode Island. The Magical Four, then they became the
Mm-hmm.
Magical Force. He reached out, and nobody, and people responded were like, oh, all right, well, maybe I'll be there next week or whatever. And then a bunch of people were supposed to come, and then at the last minute, all of them canceled. And it's like, and I said to him, I said, yeah, but when you post, hey, free before 10 at such and such club, everybody's hitting you up.
Everybody's gonna be there. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, that's the thing. And like, I was there when my high school needed somebody to donate when they
Mm-hmm.
won the championship, and I donated money for the rings. I'm there to promote anything, to endorse anybody, to support anything, because I know what it's like to grow up there, and I know the challenges that a lot of people, and I've made myself available.
Yeah.
But instead of including me in a lot of that, they'd rather the person who's more on social media, and that's fine. I'm not necessarily doing it for that. But it is just a very strange place to sit where you feel
Yeah.
like you can help. You can do, but people view you as an outsider because you don't necessarily, you're dealing with your problems are first world problems. You're not still living in the hood,
Mm-hmm.
listening to the gunshots. You're getting pulled over because you drive a nice car in your own neighborhood. And I'm not saying I am actually dealing with this in my town, because I've said several times, as a active and elected official or former elected official in my town, I said to someone one day, I said, "Is this what it feels like to be white?" I said, "Because if this is what it feels like to be a white guy, this is pretty dope." Like, I drive by if I'm in my town, I will drive by police cars and not get nervous. Or, if I happen to go through a light and it's turning red, I'm not looking behind me.
Yeah.
It's a very strange. I will call the police. I was at a convenience store and this lady was outside and she was kind of acting up. And she went inside and I think she threw a cigarette at the cashier and then kind of got mouthy with me or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'll just call the cops. And it made me laugh because I was like, I know in this case,
Did that just come
I'll
out of my
call the
mouth?
cops and I'll be good. And I was like, and so that was actually the moment when I said it. 'Cause I was like, man, now I understand. But so I understand why you don't want to give up that kind of power.
Yeah.
I certainly
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
I saw a comedian the other day. He and I wish I remembered his name to give him his props because he seemed like a guy who hasn't necessarily made it. But he was saying, I am a cisgender white male. He said, and by no means are any of the things associated with me, a struggle or underrepresented or I don't remember exactly the term he used.
Yeah.
He said, and look, he was like, and my friends are out there. He was like, I got plenty of friends who are like, oh man, it's tough to be a straight white guy these days. He said, look, it was like, I am not gonna say that. He was like, I'm not gonna say that. He was like, because it is not tough to be a straight white man.
Yeah,
He said,
man.
but it's not as it is not as good as it was. And I was like, and that was the punchline, and it had me cracking up. And I sent it to a buddy of mine because it's like, okay, and when you paint it that way, and that's the dope thing
Mhm.
about comedy is like they take the real world and kind of, put that out there
That's
in
the
a way that
artistry
people
of it,
can
man.
digest it.
Yes.
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 And so, but like those are the kind of points that it's like I feel like these are the kind of conversations that I also want to be able to have, between us,
Absolutely, man.
to
And dude,
share.
it's in everybody's culture, brother. Because let me tell you, I've heard like again, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. One of my main gigs is I also work third shift at hotels. I'm a night manager in hotels, so I work the front desk. I do all the balancing of all the credit cards and everything else. So I meet interesting people all the time, but I also have interesting security guards over the years. And to be in New Mexico and to have like literally one of my guards is straight up Mexican, not New Mexican, Mexican. And now, but they have their papers and they have everything. They're here legally. And but to hear them talk about other people, they're like, yeah, man, we can't be having them cross our borders. He goes, they come in here with their accents and you can't understand them. And they're
Wow.
serious, man. They're dead serious. They're not trying to be funny. And they're talking to others that are legal and they've got that attitude. It's like, wow,
Yep.
aren't those kind of okay? It's
That's
with
wild.
everybody. Yeah.
Wow, that is wild. Because we do it to
Hmm.
we do it
We
to
do the
ourselves.
same. Yes, sir.
We
Yes,
do it to
sir.
ourselves,
Hmm.
in the I am a combination of a lot of families. And,
Yes.
in two sides of my family, it is very much very welcoming. Like you
Yeah.
marry into the family, you have a baby with somebody in the family, you are a member of that family
Of the
forever.
family. Absolutely.
And I might wonder why you're there. Like, yo, you're the like two X's ago. Like, why are you here?
Right.
But like my families have embraced those people.
Hmm.
Whereas, if you showed up, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's cousin Neil.
Yeah.
And people be like, cousin Hal. Well, that's man's cousin. Boom, we're good.
Yep.
Whereas
Yep.
now it works
Yep.
out for us that the part of of my family that's not necessarily like that happens to be one of the sides that you are a member of with me.
Right.
So we can both still go together. But that actually
Right.
brings me to one thing that I actually want to put out there. So if y'all don't ever watch us, listen,
Yeah.
we are going to like much of what makes me me and you is
Hmm.
family and
Yeah.
experiences and things that we've had. And we are going to talk about family. We are going to
Yeah.
talk about experiences. And, I'm sure there are going to be people who take things a certain way, because not everybody necessarily likes to hear about themselves. And I'm going to do my best not to name people, and people are going to make assumptions that, well, I fit 75% of these things, so this is probably me that he's
You
talking
gotta be
about.
talking about me.
Right. And it's like, no, like if I have an issue, most people know I would have addressed it with you already. I actually had a very difficult conversation with my grandmother recently, but it was a great conversation to have because
Yes.
there were just certain things that we had to hash out. I
Yeah.
think, particularly within our community, it is this deference to elders so much that it allows elders to be borderline disrespectful. And I'm not saying that this was the case of my grandmother. I'm talking more generally now. But like, you allow people to say and do certain things. And I've seen cases where I've seen young people who are more willing to, call that ignorance out and be like, nah, that's not okay. Like, nah, I'm going to date this person regardless or whatever. And whereas
Hmm.
for us, like, we were more afraid. Like, I was
Yes.
terrified,
Yeah.
to do some of the things that, or say some of the things that younger people have said. I'm impressed. You've heard me, talk about that generation several times with pretty much admiration.
Hmm.
Now, yeah, there are certainly things about them that I don't love, but I do appreciate the willingness to do that. I've heard, a grandfather of mine or a grandfather figure. I remember one day he was blaming all the problems in Providence on the Puerto Ricans. I was like, oh man, them damn Puerto Ricans, they came in and they did this and they did that. And it's like, no, like they came in and
No.
they, worked hard and they just took advantage of opportunities and put a store there and
Hmm.
whatever. Like, they no, like stop. Like,
We had a little bit to do with it as well.
exactly. It's like, you
Yeah.
know what? And in the effort to try to lift ourselves up or whatever, we don't take responsibility for certain things and we
No.
put responsibility on other people.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, which is why, like, one of my favorite people through history is Malcolm X, and it's because he never got the due that I feel as though he was supposed to. Spike Lee, made the movie, and I think that's because he had admiration for him, but
Yes.
because he wasn't the happy, smiling, kumbaya Negro that Martin Luther King was. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way to Martin Luther King. I'm saying that was how he was perceived because he wasn't the turn the other cheek. And that's the narrative that white people have taken till now to
Yeah.
say this is the right way to do it. When you respond to force with force, they're like, well, no, you're supposed to turn the other cheek because that's what Martin Luther King
That's what
said.
Dr. King said.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you want us to do that because it makes you feel more comfortable. It makes you feel safer.
Give me one
Um,
second, cuz I have to
Go
pop
for it.
away for a second.
Yep, no problem. And I'll just keep going, but it makes people feel safer and more comfortable and easier, and it's easier to digest versus the other side, which is I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you you're wrong.
Hmm.
And if you to use the expression, if you piss on me, I'm not gonna just accept that it's raining. I'm gonna
Right.
tell you you're pissing on me and to stop.
Yeah.
And if you go back, history is revisionist because the reality, like Martin Luther King, Dr. King wasn't necessarily as revered as he's been made out to be now.
Hmm.
And you have somebody who was significantly lighter than him, and Adam Clayton Powell, who called him a coon regularly, regularly, who
Yeah.
called him an Uncle Tom regularly.
Yeah.
So you have that, whereas Malcolm X was like, nah, I'm a call it out and I'm a fight back and I have a voice, and I just don't think he's appreciated because he pushed back.
And one of the things also about Malcolm goes back to what I said earlier, and it seems like it's off and it's different things, but that image I was telling you about with the little girl I had, and that's the one that went out in the paper. Everyone had
Hmm.
that. What's the image we have with Malcolm? The gun
Yep.
by the window.
Yep.
So now, if you have this angry black man with a gun by the window, which people don't know the context of that, the man was looking
Right.
out in safety and protection of his family, not to
Right. He was
begin
being
some
hunted.
Yes, he's being hunted, exactly. And it wasn't to the beginning of a race war or anything like that. But you see that image, and that's what you equate him with, and that's all that you can equate him with. When the man was so much more than that.
Yeah.
I had the honor to portray him in this woman's Jacqueline Clay Chester, and her original play was a conversation between Malcolm X and Barack Obama, and I was blessed to play Brother Malcolm, and he's an amazing man that we don't give enough credit to in American history, not just Black history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's interesting. Having met, former President Barack Obama, you know, I, that would have been an interesting conversation because you feel like it's the before and the after.
yes,
You can
yes,
tell that,
yes,
you can see the Dr. King influences in
yes.
Barack Obama,
Mm-hmm.
and so it worked, but it also made everybody feel comfortable and safe.
Yes.
They went with the when they go low, we go high. And how is that any different than, turn the other cheek?
Turn the other cheek. Right, right.
Nonviolence,
Sounds good.
nonviolence.
It
Right,
sounds good. It's right
right,
up there when Oprah said, "I don't see color." We
right.
loved hearing that. It's like,
Those are the
oh my
ones
God.
that are going to be successful. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones that, everybody's going to be willing to adopt. And I'm not saying that, by no means am I like the most militant person in the world. Because I'm sure there are plenty of people who have looked at me. I'm sure at some point in my life, simply because I am a Black man married to a white woman living in the suburbs, I have been called an Uncle Tom or a sellout or
Mm-hmm.
something.
And you talk white, and
Yes.
you talk white. And I'm not putting this on you. It's the things we've heard.
Yes,
It's the
exactly.
things we've
I
heard.
know I had a cookout for, we started an annual cookout. It's the, my family cookout, and we invite all the sides of my family. And, the larger side of my family happens to be my father's side, and they are the more welcoming. And the thing about it is, I think up to a certain point, because I had moved away and gone off to school, and then, lived in Chicago and lived in Arizona and lived in North Carolina, and like did all of these things, these, whiter, more corporate things, grad school and whatever. They just made an assumption that I was staying away from them. Not
Yeah,
that like he's off going to school or he's off,
yeah,
growing. It was
mhm,
he's just staying away from us.
yeah.
And so when I had the cookout, and it was like, nah, everybody come through. Like, come on. And they like for some of them, they saw me for the first time in like 10, 15 years. And they were like,
Hmm.
oh, you're good. Like,
Yeah,
okay. Like we're gonna come next year and we're gonna bring
yeah,
some more people and we're gonna stay later and whatever.
yeah.
Like, and it was, but there's that assumption made that because you've left the environment that you've forgotten who you are.
Who you
It was
are,
like,
right?
I am still me.
Hmm.
And I will still respond. There are certain things that you can't take away. If you
Yeah,
were a certain person, and you respond to things a certain way, this is just who you are.
who's who you are.
And that's that, it's the fight or flight or it's whatever, and like you don't lose those things. If you do, then that's when you're a sellout, when you
That's when
completely
things become
forget who
different.
you
Right,
are,
right, right.
or you try to hide who you are. And I
Hmm.
have always embraced, in one of the first speeches I gave when I was running for office, I talked about, it was the I'm not supposed to be here speech.
Hmm.
And I said, my mother passed away when I was 13.
Hmm.
My biological father was in prison for, the better part of my first, 20 years of life.
Hmm.
And, I hung out in the streets and what have you. And people were my biological father had gone into a grocery store, on campaign day. And because he was out there, he was holding signs, we're super proud, whatever. And he was out there, he went into the store and a lady came up to him. He had, my button on. And the lady said, oh, yeah, he's doing a lot. He's working really hard out there. He seems to be doing his thing. And he said, oh, yeah, that's my son. And she was like, your son? He was like, well, how do you know what he said about you? And he was like, yeah. And she said, "That doesn't bother you?" And he said, "No, it's the truth."
It's the
He was like,
truth.
"As long as it's the truth," he was like, "I'd be
Hmm.
upset if he lied, but
Right,
it's the
right.
truth, so I'm
Yeah,
okay."
yeah.
And that's one of the things I really respect and appreciate about him, and I think that's one of the things that he's given me, is just the willingness to accept and own the truth and
Hmm.
stand on that. And so
Hmm.
when people are calling you, calling you out or calling you a liar or whatever,
Yeah.
or fighting against the things that you're calling out,
Hmm.
you have the truth to stand on, and it
Yes.
helps a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
So the last thing, and this is going to be an ongoing topic because it's just where we are, but the election, um, and it's eh, it's a weird,
The
weird.
circus.
It is wild.
The
People have
circus.
been calling for Biden to step down or step aside for a while. He finally did. I think he put Kamala in a very difficult position by doing so.
Hmm.
Is it an insurmountable task? No, she's a black woman. Like, this is just what we do. As was said in what's the Western that had Regina King and Idris and what have you.
Oh,
Because
produced
she
by
said a line in
Sean
there.
Carter.
She was
Yeah.
like, she was like struggle or something like that. She was like, we're black people in this country. Like, that's just a Tuesday.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, that's kind of the position that she's in. But I had posted something on my Facebook the other day because I'm like, you know what? People vote how you want. Like, that's your
Yeah.
business, whatever. Like, I respect people's right to vote for who they want. Where I have run into issues with people is, and I feel as though it really did start with Obama, with the narrative to create a lie and be disrespectful when talking about your candidate versus another. It
Hmm.
is, the thing against Obama was he wasn't born here. He's not an American.
Right.
He's from Kenya. He's from
Hmm.
Hawaii, which last time I checked is part of the United States. All of these, he's Muslim. He's
All these
part of,
tropes. All these tropes.
yeah, he's part of the Taliban. Like, he's a
Yeah.
plant. Like, all of these things, and many of them were
Yeah.
actually pushed by 45.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but and so I saw somewhere somebody referred to her as a hoe. And I'm like, wait, what? No, like, this is not where we're
Oh
gonna
yeah,
go.
that's the newest thing. She slept her
I-
way to the top. She's
y-
light on. She's not heavy on crime. It's like, have you all done any homework?
right, like, the struggle that she's had with the black community is
Y-
that she's been heavy on
Yes,
crime,
yes. She's
and
not a
so
friend of the shore. Let me
right,
say, she wasn't at the time coming up in the 80s, 90s. She was not a friend
no,
of black folks at all.
no,
At
and I mean,
all
and
in
that was part of the
California.
nature of the job, and part of our responsibility that this is where we were.
Hmm.
And kind of the same question that you have of a black cop, you could have had of her.
Yeah.
And like, I faced that. Like, that is the reality. That was her job. And she certainly, there was no love lost between her and the black community as she has grown politically, but that doesn't make her not black. And
Exactly.
also, that doesn't mean that she isn't deserving. There's this a meme or whatever that's been put out where they keep comparing her to JD Vance, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's running for president. She's not running for VP. She already got that one.
Right. She
She
got that
already
one.
she checked that box. So it's like, you know what? You want to make the apples to apples comparison?
Yes.
Compare her to the president. Compare the
Yes.
credentials to the president.
Right.
Make that comparison because now the boxes start to get a little lopsided. You
Hmm.
went that way because he happened to serve. The former president, didn't serve. Like,
Right.
what are you talking about?
What are you
You
talking about?
create these fake narratives to create fake outrage so
Hmm.
that you can just make an argument that you were willing to vote for somebody who has proven to
Hmm.
be a racist. You were willing to vote for him because you hope or you believe it'll benefit you financially.
They don't want to let go of that thing that you were talking about earlier. Of, is
Yes.
this what it is to be what? They don't want to let that. We're gonna hold on to that tooth and nail. Tooth and nail. We'll go for the lies. We will
Yep.
be a religious group where we know the things that come out of this man's mouth and the things that have been proven to be factual. We know he does these things. We know they're against our beliefs, but we will still put money in his pocket and vote for him because even we don't want to lose that grip hold that we have.
Yep. And we are, and as, and you see black people, particularly musicians or whatever, who are coming out. And I hate that, hell, the voice of the black people ends up being musicians more often than not because they have a platform and they have a following. But, you have those out there who are like, yeah, I love me some Trump. He took care of us. Like, yeah, he gave us
gangster.
yeah, he's one of us. He got a record.
Yeah.
He's one
See them sneakers?
He gave a stimulus check. He took care of black people. No, white people got the stimulus check than black people. And by the way, the primary beneficiary of the stimulus check was the rich, because what happened? You gave poor people money. They had stuff that they needed to spend it on. And who like when they spend it on those things, whether it be bills or material, whose pocket does it go in? It stimulates it benefits the rich because you're just going to spend it. It's not like you're getting the stimulus check and you're investing it, you're spending it.
They spend
they put the line so that it would only go to the people who were financially in a position where they needed to spend it. It's not the people who would have taken this surplus of money that they weren't expecting and invested it and used it for something that might matriculate or materialize into something later. They use that now. They're like, no, we're gonna give it to them. Oh wait, how much do they make? Now let's cut it off there because we don't want to help them.
Not too much.
We want to keep the middle class middle. We don't want the middle class to grow. We want to keep the middle class middle. But so many people are willing to fight this fight because they think this guy who was born to money, who has never had to fight for anything, somehow cares and represents them. And what he represents is he has given the ignorant a voice. People who have gotten their hands slapped for the last 20 years for saying ignorant stuff. Have now had somebody and they said, well, he said it, so why can't I? And like he's pushing back against that, and it's like, no, he's not. He probably doesn't even believe the stuff he's saying. He's just saying it because he knows
you believe it. He knows they believe it. That's why he's saying it.
Exactly. He has said
they believe it.
He has said uneducated people love me.
Yes. The reason he said even before running, he said, I will run as a Republican because they believe anything.
Yes.
These are words that came out of his mouth. And to just add to this, man, I think we can all remember that time. We can remember that video of when John McCain was running against Obama. He was in Minnesota. And a woman had the microphone. And she's like, Obama's just a Muslim. She's just... He took the microphone and he said, no, ma'am. I'm not going to let you talk about that man like that. He is a man and we're going for the same. I get emotional about this, man.
Yes.
He's like, he's a man going for the job just like me. He's a father. He's a husband. He goes, and we're going for the same job. I get tingles with that because like that was the end of the Republican Party. Because I was like, okay, man, I want Obama, but man, I can respect the hell out of you that you did that. And if by chance you won, the fact that that is in you, then I can see something for you.
Yes.
And that's what we don't have. And those moments are gone. And then what this gentleman did is he came in, he said to that old woman, yes, take the mic. Tell us more. Say more. That's the difference between this Republican Party and that Republican Party.
Yes. And that's all we're asking for when it's the same, as the Black Lives Matter, two versus only. It's the same thing. It's like, because we want you to recognize that like we are the same, we have the same problems and then some. Like recognizing that we have struggles doesn't mean that we're taking anything away from you. It just means that we just want you to recognize that we have certain struggles that you don't. It doesn't mean that you don't have struggles.
No.
It doesn't mean that you were born to money or your life is easy or anything. It just means that in the stack of struggles that you've had, one of them isn't the color of your skin or your gender or your belief system or your sexuality or whatever it is. And but where we are is and I keep pushing color because everybody else gets ahead because color is the one thing that white people can't be.
Yeah.
And so, when you're fighting when everybody else is, getting, winning the race, on the back of, more often than not, on the back of people of color, most of the LGBTQ plus, advancements have been made on the back of a person of color.
First episode,
and
first episode.
Nope, because I have been supportive. I am an ally of everything. But my point is that
it's real talk, though.
We'll get it, and we just keep getting left out. And people will say, well, I am a liberal, I am a progressive, I am this, I have gay friends, I have friends with special abilities, which is a debate, but I was told recently by somebody they would rather be called disabled than special abilities. So and that was straight from a person who I really respect, who actually has a disability.
Yeah.
And so I okay, fine. So, but whether you have disabilities or are a member of the LGBTQ plus community or whatever it is, like a white person can be those things. A white person can't be black. A white person can't be Puerto Rican. A white person can't be Mexican. And well, you sort of can. I mean, you do have white Puerto Ricans or whatever, but you understand. But they can't be those things. And it's like being progressive or liberal or whatever is about caring about all of those things and respecting the differences from all of those things, not just the ones you happen to have a friend who's gay or a friend who's handicapped or a friend or a cousin who is whatever. Like, no, it means you have to care about humanity in general. And until you do, and until you care about those things equally, you're not necessarily you're not who you think you are.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm willing to call that out just pisses off a lot of people. And the fact that you're not willing to sacrifice those things, has impaired why you haven't, why you're not, why it's not Neil Hazard that we're talking about versus, as the next Denzel. Next Don Cheadle. I would actually, Don Cheadle is actually my favorite actor on the planet. But
big ups to Don Cheadle. Big ups.
Don Cheadle and
I still rock with Denzel.
Don Cheadle and Edward Norton. I like those two because I just feel like they appreciate the art of it more.
I throw Kiefer Sutherland into that mix.
Yeah, he's another one I would give it to. Like, they are just, and I guess I won't say appreciate the art of it, but they are the actor's actor. That's kind of how I look at them. They are the ones, when you talk about music, which I'm sure, will definitely be an episode. It's like, certain people are, Redman is a rapper's favorite rapper. Black Thought is a rapper's favorite rapper. Yeah, exactly. Rakim the God. Like that's his name. Rakim the God.
Don't forget where we went off track on this. So no. Because we can do this all day and be like, okay, how we get here?
Exactly. But no, so like but the point is, like, you have to be willing to embrace everything. And like, until you do, like, I'm gonna call it out. Like, you might be better than them. You might be more open-minded or more liberal or more progressive, but you are not progressive.
Right.
Until it's about everything. Yeah. Until you share that passion. Sorry.
No. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure we were still on that because I know we could have went down each of those rabbit holes where we were at.
Absolutely.
No, you got it. Yeah, man. I think there's a lot of people that have climbed on the backs of, I mean, almost everybody that's not going through what they were going through 10, 15 years ago have climbed on the backs of Black people and Black people's struggles, because Black people are the only concentrated group that we've been continuously going through it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? How does that happen? And that's not
Systemic.
just a bunch of exactly, because there's a plan. There's a plan.
And the world always pushes back when the progress or the growth happens. There is always something happens after it. I don't even have to use president. I'll use a sports analogy. Ty Willingham became the coach of Notre Dame when Notre Dame was rock bottom. They had like the worst stretch in Notre Dame history. You know, every Irish Catholic kid born wants to play football for Notre Dame someday.
Yep.
And you know, that's everybody's favorite team. And he had like a 10-1 season or something like that in his first year. Then he had like a couple mediocre seasons, not bad seasons, but mediocre seasons. Who was the next coach? What was it? Charlie Weiss. He was the next coach. Like, and then they gave him, you know, a lot more latitude. The program actually plummeted. They gave him another contract. And like there's always a response. Every time there's that step forward, the socioeconomic environment is there to not make you take 2 steps back, pull you 2 steps back.
Yes.
And this is where we are. Like we're in this like socioeconomic revolution right now that reminds me, I mean, I'm not old enough to remember what it was like, but it reminds me of what I imagine the 60s and 70s to be like. Oh, and that's the response to having a Black president.
Yep.
So, you know, this is going to be fun. Like, you know, right now, this is WNB1 is the platform. They are giving us an opportunity to, they are, you know, hosting this, provided the, you know, the vessel for this. They've been really supportive of, you know, me in particular and the challenges that I faced. They are also a Black owned radio station. So I certainly,
big up WNB1. We thank you.
Yes, sir. You know, certainly go through, look them up, listen to the music. There are other shows on the network as well, but this will, you know, this is going to be us. This is going to be ongoing. Also, if you know, I'm all about my my t-shirts, my problematic t-shirts. You know, my t-shirt says "We'll trade racists for refugees." People have complimented me. I went fishing in this t-shirt, and like half the boat was like, "Yo, that shirt's dope. Where'd you get it?" So if you have a place, or you know, you make t-shirts that, you know, are socio-economic, political.
Please let us know.
We'll call them. Let me know, because I'll wear it.
As well.
Yes, I will wear it, and I'll wear it out.
Yes.
I will wear it in public and dare you to say something.
Yes.
And not because I'm going to put them hands on you, although I can, because I am, you know, I take pride in the fact that I've gone to school with some of the smartest people in, you know, people that you've seen on TV, scientists, you know, epidemiologists, whatever. You know, a friend of mine and former classmate was very out there in the public eye during COVID, you know, talking about the virus itself. And I am proud to say that I went to school with, and I know people like that, because I really respect surrounding myself with people that I deem smarter than me.
Yeah.
And although one of my former classmates said, "Yeah, Leon, but you were there too." And it was like, so, you know, as you're giving reverence to these people, it was like, you were there too. Like, and so that means like you're one of us. It's not, you know, you went to school with some of the smartest people. Like, you were one of us.
You're amongst them. You're amongst them. They're your peers.
Yeah. And so, and I certainly appreciated that. But so I will, I will educate and I will enlighten and I will share and I will answer questions.
Hmm.
If your question is genuine and you want to understand something, I will have
Yeah.
that conversation with you. I've
Yeah.
always felt like that obligation. It's when you're
Hmm.
disrespectful that
Yeah.
you're going to get a different side.
Yeah.
But as
Absolutely.
long as it's in a, open-minded, wanting to learn more kind of way,
Genuinely curious.
right?
Yeah.
Versus, some of the stuff I've gotten with people, telling me, how I'm supposed to feel or how I'm supposed to respond to things,
Right.
which we can, talk about. This episode could literally go on for 6 hours
True.
of us just kind of talking about random shit. So, we had to find an ending point. Cause when you gonna be here in person, sitting, I gotta get myself oriented, but right here.
Well, it depends on when our next show is. But we'll talk about that more offline. I'll tell you what. Clearly, definitely by September.
Okay. Well, I hope to have a couple episodes before then. Yeah, we'll talk about frequency. We'll talk about whatever. But certainly not gonna. I don't want us to wait. We can have these conversations. We can share
Oh
them.
yeah.
I hope people are excited to hear what we have to talk about. And I'm sorry if I talk too much. But
No, we're gonna work out logistics, man. I'm letting you go, and nah, you haven't talked too much, man. You haven't said anything that didn't make sense. You spoke with much clarity, cousin, and that's why I was very comfortable in just being quiet and letting you go as well, man.
no doubt. Well, I
Yeah,
love you, cuz.
love you back, cuz.
Um, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace, everybody at WMB1. We love you. Thank you for this time and this opportunity, and more to come.